Few light bulbs went off for me this last week around parenting and how I'm showing up in that space and the message it's sending to my kids. I was talking with my youngest about a recent incident that we had where he wasn't listening and he kept interrupting me. And at each point I was like, I need you to stop. You need to stop. I'm talking. Stop. Slow down. Trying to get him to pause, like we all try to do. So I said, if you don't stop, then there's going to be a consequence. And he didn't. And so I doled out the consequence. And he had asked the question, why do I get these consequences? Or why do I have to lose this, like his device privilege? I explained it because this is a consequence for not listening, not stopping. You were getting upset and you weren't slowing down and you were talking to me inappropriately. So this is the consequence that you get. And I was like, does that make sense? Because I thought we had cleared this up before. And he's like, I said, why did you think you got it? He was like, well, because I thought you were mad at me, that you were just mad. And so you were punishing me. And I was like, oh, okay. And I, thought really quick to myself, well, why did he think I was mad? And I replayed the incident in my head. And he probably thought that because I'm sure I had my mean mom face. My tone was out of frustration. My volume was raising, partly because I had to speak over him, but a little bit so he would try to pause. But all the signs were there that like, oh, mom's mad. And so the light bulb that went off for me was that while his behavior was not okay, neither was mine in that moment. And I think a lot of you can probably relate to those moments where things like that escalate. Your kid's doing something that is frustrating and annoying and, they're not listening and you just want them to listen. And then, you're yelling at each other or somebody's crying and shit's hit the fan. And so I try to tell myself, or I've said to myself, like, well, yeah, that happens because he's not doing what I'm telling him to do. He's not focusing or paying attention or completing the task, whatever. And that's why I'm frustrated. And I was like, okay, let's get a little bit more curious about this because, I'm an adult. And if I'm trying to model my children, good, healthy regulation of emotion, was that really a good modeling of that, in that interaction that we had? And so, no, it wasn't the best. I'm not going to shame myself over it, but definitely there's room for improvement. And so I paused and got curious, and kind of asked myself, like, what was I so upset about? Like, yeah, I could feel it. I could feel that like tightness in my chest and that tension and the like as it elevated with every time he spoke, it went up and, wasn't listening to me. And every time I was saying, I need you to stop. I need you to listen. It's going up and it's escalating and I can feel it. And so I'm like, man, why was it escalating so much? And I know that was modeled to me by my parents. They escalated instantly. So there's that bit of it. But when I slow down and think about what was happening for me in that moment, he's not listening. And there are a couple of thoughts, processes that I had in that moment. One was kind of that hand-me-down from my parents. He better listen or else. So I'm the adult and he must do what I say or else. He's a bad kid or something along those lines. But the other one was, the other kind of train of thought was, and this one's familiar and I've recognized it before, is that if he doesn't do what I'm telling him to do, right? Then he's not going to learn the lesson from that, or he's not going to build that character or that quality or that good habit within himself. So there's that. The other one was, if he doesn't listen, then and stop now, then I'm going to have to give him consequence. And because that's the rule, that's the system of parenting I have. And if I have to dole out that consequence, well, it's, in this case, a loss of devices. And so then that means he's going to be wandering around bored for the next 24 hours or 48, whatever the sentence is. And I don't want to have to deal with that. But then another consequence is, if I have to give him this punishment and take this away, then he's going to react, right? And be upset. And then I have to deal with that reaction, right? What if he talks back, or what if he whines? And all of these are out of fear, right? I'm afraid of his reaction. If I have to give the consequence, how's he going to handle it? I'm afraid that if he doesn't, do this thing I'm telling him to do, then he's not going to grow up to be a, good human and adult, and, there'll be something wrong with him. All this fear. And I know that is often what is there present for me in these moments when I'm trying to get my kids to do something. There's always some kind of fear. And if we can, in those moments that are not our best parenting moments, give ourselves that grace to reflect on it, after the fact, see what it is, like I said, like, wow, why was I so upset? And be able to not judge ourselves and come to those conclusions. Oh, okay, I'm afraid, right? That if he doesn't, pick up his dirty clothes off the floor, that, it's going to be messy, and then his laundry isn't going to get done because it's all going to be on the floor, and then he won't have clean clothes, and on and on and on and on. And the beauty of that, like realizing all of that and accepting that fear, is that, one, it gives me just some more data to understand myself and figure out how I want to parent better next time. But I can also go back to my kiddo and say, hey, I am sorry that I wasn't able to better control myself in that moment. I was frustrated with you because I'm afraid. I'm afraid what's going to happen if you don't brush your teeth twice a day. I'm afraid of what's going to happen if you aren't nice to your brother. If you don't do these things are here for a reason. And so when I get afraid, I buckle down to get that control, and I get frustrated, and I talk to you in a way that's not nice. So we can do that repair. We can apologize. We can share with our kid about these very human things that we do as a parent, and help them also, I think, understand what is motivating this rule, or this, what is the reason behind why we have them do things. It's not just that dictator, do what I said. It's like, no, we do these things for a reason, and I love and care about you, and it worries me, when I see you, not doing these things. So if we can pause and slow down and see, what are we afraid of as parents? What are we worried is going to happen if our kid doesn't listen or do this or do that? That's more knowledge for us, and knowledge is power to do something about it or do something different.